Chapter number 22. Sandra Leaves. It was around Thanksgiving 2006 when I finally got it through my thick skull that there was nothing I could do to hold my sister to this earth. To me, her children, and my children. Sandra was slipping away from us. There wasn't a shocking test result or some doctor giving us a number of months or weeks she had left. One day, though, I finally saw a fundamental change in Sandra. You could no longer see the joy in her. It had gone, and in its place came resignation. Without her saying one word, I could just sense that she was no longer concentrating on the here and now. Sandra was almost fierce in her determination to get certain things done. Christmas presents that year had to be absolutely perfect and carried out to a T per her specifications. Her super-focused attitude almost reminded me of a pregnant woman about to give birth, in a frenzy of the preparations nesting for the new life to come, or a busy farm wife who puts up corn and tomatoes against the day when nothing would grow in the dark winter time. Sandra was making provisions for us against the day when she wouldn't be here anymore. It would be a new life for her in heaven and a different kind of new life for us without her. One of the Christmas presents Sandra arranged for during this time was for Brian, whom she adored. She never called it a preparation period or even referred to dying at all. But in retrospect, I see that's what she was doing, preparing. You could tell she was trying to finish up a job. My son had become so special and dear to her in the last few years of her life, and she planned the ideal gift for him, a framed photo of the two of them at the beach. This was a lot more complicated than it sounds at first. Brian is so picky about his photos. He doesn't think he's photogenic at all. So Sandra found a wonderful photo of him that she knew would meet his approval, had herself digitally added in next to him, and then had a beautiful beach background put in as a setting. She loved the beach so much, especially Britney's condo in Florida. Brian has this treasured keepsake of his aunt Sandra. Somehow she knew we would need mementos like that to hold on in the very near future. Sandra's unbroken circle. For the last few weeks of her life, Sandra was cared for by so many people who meant to the most of her. Friends and family railed with deliveries of food, medicine, cards, and loving visits. Their touches of grace and kindness warmed her waning days on his earth, and I will always be so thankful to them for their gifts of service and love. But at the very end, when Sandra wanted almost no company, the core circle of love included me, Sandra's husband Reggie, her daughter Laura Lynne's boyfriend Blaine, and Sandra's best friend Katie. She did not want to have hospice care set up for her or to have strangers standing her at the end. Fortunately, God gave us the wherewithal to meet many of her needs between the five of us, with the support of a visiting nurse and also Sandra's doctor, who came by frequently. That's just one of the benefits of a small town. The care extended so freely from one person to another when it's needed. The doctor and other medical professionals who came by the house came because they loved us and didn't charge us a bit. In LA, you could get a doctor to make a house call if you forked over hundreds of dollars, but in Kenwood, that's just the way things were done and are done to this day. I have some precious memories of those last days together, memories that are at once painful and beautiful. It was a blessing to care for Sandra's most mundane needs, such as giving her foot rubs. She was comforted when I would rub her feet as a distraction from the pain. I had learned how to give a good foot rub back when Mama had rheumatoid arthritis so badly, It was something small yet meaningful that I could still do for my big sister. And if you've watched someone you adore die slowly and painfully, you know how meaningful those food rubs were for me. One day Katie had been sleeping in a chair and I wanted her to be more comfortable. So I suggested she crawl in with Sandra, as I had been doing some nights. We all thought Sandra was sleeping because she was at a stage in her decline where she was hardly saying much at all. Then all of a sudden she called out from her bed, in a voice that was anything but feeble. "Katie, you're not sleeping in my bed." For some reason, it made us all laugh a little because it was so unexpected and out of character for gentle Sandra. She loved Katie dearly, so I knew it wasn't that she was mad at her or anything. The thing is, I was her little sister, and we always used to sleep together when we were at home. I used to fling my leg over her legs and nuzzle my nose into her back, and that's how we slept for years until she left for college. That night, so close to her last one on this earth, Sandra wanted us to be as we were, sisters who shared everything. So, of course, I crawled into bed with her and treasured every second. Sandra's daughter-in-law, Jamie, yes, I know, another Jamie, who is a doctor of pharmacy, came to visit us every afternoon, bringing Hannah Claire, Sandra's grandbaby. One afternoon, I told this Jamie about a kind of waking vision Sandra had had about our mama. Sandra was so weak at that time, and every sentence out of her mouth took enormous effort. But she had said to me, quite lucidly, "Lynne, I saw Mama, and she was so beautiful." Jamie was not surprised one bit. "You know what, Aunt Lynne? I've seen this time and time again. When someone is this close to dying, they almost go back and forth between one world and the next." This really was much a wonderful validation for me, for a medical professional, to say that it wasn't just a dream or a drug-induced delusion. I had an uncle who, in the last days of his life, claimed to see his best friend and his mother. Lots of people might not believe that those things really happen, but I disagree. I think God gives his dying children a measure of grace, putting them in a special place so they are ready to die. And there's no doubt Sandra's picture of Mama was a true gift to me, a source of comfort I will always draw from. That vision was just one way that God pulled me, his grieving child, into his arms and held me closer than I had ever known. At a time in my life when my heart throbbed with sorrow, I felt him draw nearer as I daydreamed about Mama, young and beautiful, with her elder daughter by her side, in his presence. The service. In her healthier days, sometimes the tabloids would try to get a quote from Sandra about Britney. She always handled this with her usual unflappable manner. Nothing fazed her, but really, people didn't bother her or the rest of the family too much. After all, this is rural Louisiana we're talking about, and most folks have shotguns at home. I say this with a smile, but I wouldn't be surprised if that fact that scared off more than one rabid reporter in his quest to get some scoop on my kids. Speaking of bottom-feeding journalists, there are some who would show up in the funeral of a star's beloved one on the off chance they might capture a shot of raw grief. But not one paparazzo appeared at Sandra's service, even though Britney was there, of course. She loved her aunt Sandra dearly, as all my kids did. I think it was a small miracle no photographers came, because they didn't even know about the funeral or put together who would be there and when. The Lord truly protected us during that hard day. Sandra would have been so embarrassed at the number of people who came to her funeral. Honestly, she was just a humble, white woman who never drew any attention to herself, but went about her life, caring for others in her through thoughtful ways. But that church was so crowded that day, you'd have thought a member of the royal family had died. Somehow or another, she had touched each and every life in that sanctuary. Her grace swept far and wide. Remembering, a week after Sandra died, she would have turned 60. I drove up to her grave, and when I had been there for a little while, I saw two other people coming toward me. It was Reggie first and Lynne. We had all had the same idea, but we hadn't told one another we were coming. We sat on that grassy hillside, which overlooks a huge dairy farm, each of us silent and then talkative by turns, remembering. Somehow Sandra was gone, and the three of us were left behind.